Hi everyone, today we're going to be covering our final introductory lesson for economics, and this is focusing on two different topics. So, the first thing it's going to focus on is the factors of production, which are basically the four things that any business or company needs in order to produce goods or services to be sold to others. And the second is a model known as the circular flow model. So, the circular flow model is looking at how things move in a market between households, so individuals living within the economy and businesses. So, because there's two sections of this lesson, there are two learning targets. The first one is I can define and describe the four factors of production, and then the second one is I can use the circular flow model to analyze the relationship between households and businesses. I'm covering these two learning targets together because the four factors of production is a large part of the circular flow model, so it's one of the pieces kind of out of that puzzle. At the end of this lesson, we're also going to discuss what factors are not considered in the circular flow model. So, while the circular flow model takes into account the household and it takes into account the firm or the business side of things, there are a few pieces that are missing in that model. So, first of all, we're going to talk about the factors of production. By definition, there are four different factors of production. They include land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So, when we're talking about land, especially as time has developed and people have innovated and changed kind of how they do business, it has a pretty broad definition. It can include the physical land used. So, this could either be the physical land of things like agricultural land, if you're looking at the farming industry where people are growing the crops and then those crops are being sold, and that's part of the business. It can also be the commercial real estate. So, for example, if you're talking about a factory, or if you're talking about a restaurant, or if you're talking about a hair salon, something that physically is located in one location, that is also an aspect of land. So instead of talking about where things are grown and using the physical land in order to produce that good or service, you're talking about where that good or service is either created or where that good or service is sold. In addition, it can also include the land where natural resources is found if that is a part of the business model. So, for example, if you're looking at any of the natural resources such as gold, silver, oil, then the land part of the factors production is actually talking where those natural resources are found and not so much where they're sold. When we're talking about labor, we're talking about the effort by individuals to bring products or services into play. So that is anyone that is working to help to create that specific good or service. That one's generally a little bit more obvious than the other. When we're talking about capital, capital is generally specific to money. So it's talking about the money to finance the production of a good or service. In order to produce any good or service, you need money up front. Generally, this requires investors. This is something we're going to talk more about later on in the school year. However, it can also include anything that's required to create that good or service, such as machinery, tools, and buildings. So these are physical things that are required in order to produce that good or service. And then finally, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is kind of a broad term in terms of the factors of production that has kind of evolved over time. When we're talking about entrepreneurs, we're talking about a person who combines land, labor, and capital to make a product. So we will have a separate lesson on entrepreneurship, and we'll talk about how entrepreneurship is different than other forms of business models. However, more importantly, entrepreneurs are innovators who develop new goods or services within a society. So these are the people with the ideas, and not only do they have those ideas, but they are willing to go through the process and take the risk in order to create them. Entrepreneurs are vital to economic growth. Without them, then the society would stay exactly the same all the time. This can be very dangerous for economies. And they are also the people who take risks based on potential benefits. So, because they see the potential to potentially make more money for their business, they are willing to go out on a limb and invest time and money and all the things in order to produce new models of whatever good or service they're providing or something like that. So this takes us to the circular flow model. So the circular flow model has two parts to it. You can see on the left-hand side here, we have the household. So that is talking about individuals within an economy. It's not talking about the specific house, but rather it's talking about households. So individuals that make up an economy. On the right side, we have firms. This is talking about any businesses that provide any goods or services within a society. The only limitation on firms is it's not talking about the government. You'll notice that there are two sets of arrows which make up the central part of the circular flow model. There's the purple arrows that go around the outside, and then there's the green arrows which go on the inside. So, the circular flow model is based off of the balance between households and firms in order to ensure that both are meeting the needs that they need. So, first of all, factors of production, which we just talked about, include land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. These are all things that individuals put into a business. They are the ones that purchase land in order to build their business, whether that be the agricultural land that going to grow their good or service on, whether that be the land that they're going to buy to build their business. Labor, these are employees for these firms. So they're either the people that are running the business or they are the people that are working for the people that are running the business. But labor is anyone that has anything to do with producing that good or service. Capital, people are the ones who are investing money. They are the ones that are helping to ensure that businesses have what they need to be successful. In entrepreneurship could be any individuals that are coming from their households, and they are the ones to help develop ideas. In turn, for things like labor and entrepreneurship, the firms are paying the individuals that are employed at that business wages. So the wages is how much those people are making. So in return for the factors of production they're putting forward, they're earning money in return. So this is kind of the trade-off. At the bottom, we see basically the trade part of the economy. So when individuals are selling a good or service, the goal is to make a profit. The goal is to make money. In doing so, that means that people want to actually buy that good or service that they're selling. When they do that, they are taking the money that they're making, so the money they're getting from the firms, and they are spending that money within the economy. They're buying the goods and services, whether that be things they need or things they want. In return, because they are putting money forward and giving that money to the firms, they are getting those goods and services in return. So, today we're going to look at several examples of this and look at how the circular flow model can impact individual industries. Basically, you are looking at the circular effect of what happens when people put money into a business and then get money back because they're earning money on their paycheck. What happens when people are spending money to give money to firms because they are interested in their goods and services and then get those goods and services in return. The circular flow model does a nice job including a lot of the aspects in terms of the wages and the goods and services within an economy and things like that. However, there are several factors that are not included in this model. The first is the government sector. So the government sector gives and takes money. And so this is a whole section that is not considered. So when we're talking about firms, we're never talking about the government being a part of one of those firms. The second one is government spending. So one of the roles of a government is to spend money out of usually taxpayer dollars in order to provide for the common good. So this are things like roads or public parks or things like that. This is not accounted for within this model at all. So this is a separate topic that we'll cover later on in the school year. The next one is taxes. So this is not taking into account the money, especially on sales tax, that is going to the government. So there's an additional fee on things that people are buying, and that additional fee makes those goods or services more expensive. Similarly, when we're looking at wages, it's not taking into account the income tax. So as people are working and earning their wages, a percentage of that wage is going to the federal, state, and sometimes even local government. It is not taking into account that part of the model either. And then finally, the foreign sector. So this model does not necessarily work when we're talking about imports and exports. Imports are goods or services that are brought into a company. Exports are goods or services or country. Exports are goods or services sent away from a country to another country in the form of trade. So because this is generally talking about the flow of money within a specific economy, this is not taking it into account when people are buying products from other locations.